Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. So, NieR Automata is a wonderful game and a fantastic sequel, and I want to talk about both of these things and more. So, before we go too far into it, spoilers ahead for NieR Automata. Spoilers ahead for anything NieR, because we're just gonna go all into it. And spoilers ahead for Drakengard as a result, because these two series are like tied together, or one and the same if you want to look at it that way. And we'll get into that. So spoilers ahead for everything and anything NieR and Drakengard related. So with that in mind, let's get into it. I'll give a little background about my experience with NieR Automata, and then just like flesh it out from there. Okay, so NieR Automata, if you did not know, is my favorite game of all time, and I don't say that lightly. There's a lot of amazing games out there, but NieR Automata, it's just like it hits hard, and it just somehow gets better with time. Like each time I revisit it, and that's a wild thing to me. And this last time, I had a rather unique experience with it. Okay, so like I got NieR Automata back in 2018. It took me a while to get a PS4 back in the day, but like I eventually got it, started going through my list of games that I wanted for it. And NieR Automata was very much on it. It's like I had to play it. It seemed very interesting. And so I did. And it blew my freaking mind. Like, it is action packed, thought provoking, beautiful both thematically and visually. It just like it hits you hard. It never stops quite hitting you. It is very immersive and also wonderfully weird. And I remain here for it. Like I enjoyed the gameplay, I enjoyed the story. It hit me so hard. I played it for 2 months straight. And like I said earlier, spoilers ahead, so I don't feel bad talking about the structure of the game. If you've played NieR Automata or you might have heard it, the idea is like you have that first playthrough, and honestly, it's a complete game in and of itself just on that logic. However, if you don't go past it, you're seriously missing out. And the game goes so far as to tell you that in the credits. So it's just like there are 5 main throughs, and there's definitely like other alternate endings that you can get, but like there's 5 major playthroughs. It's more like 4 major playthroughs with a decision tying those two, and that leads to um, a final segment, which is its own thing, but it's like much smaller and gives you the overall ending. But anyway, there's the A, B, C, and D routes. So they're the major ones, followed by the E route once you've completed those 4 routes. And then, like I said, there's a bunch of endings that you can get, mostly from failing in different ways. Ending Y is, I think, the only one that's missable if you're not careful. Um, and that's the one with like there's a whole lot of stuff with like Emil in that game, and you have to like pretty much fail that final fight with the Emils to get that ending, which if you're playing it, you're probably already maxed out level wise, and you know what you're doing, and you're probably going to win that fight unless you're deliberately trying to get that ending. So it's just worth noting. But anyway, I digress. Like so I think it's a wild game through and through, and there's plenty to do. And I actually do like the DLC, like the Coliseum stuff, right? And there's like some interesting story stuff that comes with that. But my whole thing overall is just that it's an incredible game. Like I'm a huge fan of RPGs, and I like really like action RPGs. Also, a huge fan of Devil May Cry. Anyone who has been tuning in for a while, there's a good and reasonable chance that you've seen me talk about Devil May Cry. Okay, but and I bring that up because it's just like if you play Devil May Cry, like you can feel that sort of influence on it. NieR Automata is a collaboration between Square Enix and Platinum Games. Platinum Games, like the CEO, was the guy who did the first Devil May Cry. And the Platinum Games definitely has its own style that they bring to the table. Bring to the table for NieR Automata. And so this marriage is a good one, and I like it. And I like it on its own. It feels amazing. But then when you start to get a better understanding of the background, it gets fully bonkers because NieR Automata is a sequel to a game that is the spin-off of an alternate ending to another. And that original game is Drakengard. And I assure you, back when I played Drakengard, which was over 20 years ago at this point, it was a game that I enjoyed for sure, but I never anticipated that it would lead to my favorite game of all time. And that's wild to me. And so, NieR Automata, though, it works on its own because it's just a well polished, very impactful game. Like, it's immersive. The gameplay is top notch. The story is top notch. The character and voice work top notch, along with the music. Everything is like so deliberate, so just wonderful, and it unfolds in some interesting ways that you can play around with and have fun with. And I feel like if you're actually doing like the side quests, they do work, right? They not only make you stronger, and so you get that motivation to do them in that way, but they flesh out the world a bit. And like some of them are, like some of those side quests end on some really down notes, but like, interesting ones though. And one of the big things though that I like with NieR Automata is you have this idea of humanity, right? Like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a person? And you see that throughout the game, and it's just fascinating because if you couple that with like NieR Replicant, it's like it becomes a really interesting thing because you have the androids in NieR Automata, but like before that, the androids were in like NieR Replicant, as were the replicants and the gestalts. And so with these three sort of beings, you have that just idea of like, hey, what does it mean to be humans? But then it gets crazier because you have the aliens and the machine life forms that they made, and they're dealing with that. Like, by the time you get to NieR Automata, like humanity is like people would traditionally know it was extinct, right? And the same could be said for the aliens. So you have this like uh, proxy war being fought by the androids and the machine life forms, and everyone is pretty much fighting, to live, to exist, and everybody wants to be human, and it's like it feels like such an incredibly human thing to want. And so I just like how you have these like beautiful themes of like humanity and identity, and like the whole meaning of war. And at the end of the day, right, it's like it's a war between androids and machine life forms. Humanity is like you would typically know it died a long time ago, but it's like the torch had been passed, and there's always like that debate, like, hey, what counts as human? So I like how those things unfold in NieR Automata, and again, it's the kind of thing that you can enjoy in its own. It's like it's rich. It has a lot of lore. It has a lot of action. But like if you don't have any prior knowledge of NieR Replicant, it's not actually going to hurt you. Same with Drakengard. Um, you can enjoy it in and of itself, and it is a top-notch game that should be played. Like if you give a crap about gaming, like yes, you should treat yourself to that game. And so it's a wonderful game for a variety of reasons. But not only is it a wonderful game, it's a fantastic sequel because you have this idea that you have a game that is so strong that can stand on itself so well that is impressive. But then you have this other idea that hey, it works well as a sequel to a replicant. Because and just to back up a little bit, and also just to like make it not confusing for people, hopefully. Okay, so when NieR Replicant originally came out, there's three versions to consider of that, and all of it's really like the same sort of stuff. Okay, so you had NieR Replicant, which came out on the PS3 in Japan, right? And on the Xbox 360, you had NieR Gestalt. The major difference there is with NieR Replicant, it had a younger, unnamed protagonist, and for Gestalt, it was an older, unnamed protagonist, and the relationship to Yona changed. Like, because like Yona is the main protagonist's sister in Replicant, but his daughter in Gestalt. And then you have the idea that there's the remake remaster. Oh wait, so you know what? Sorry. So there's like really four versions to consider because there's like a Replicant and Gestalt back in sorry, back with a PS3 and Xbox 360 respectively in Japan, and then internationally, it was just named NieR, and they follow like the older protagonist. But then you have the remake and remaster, but like which came out 11 years after that. Um, and with that one, it's NieR Replicant, and all the numbers that follow that version, all the numbers that follow that. Um, the 1.22, etc. Because I forget it at the moment. Um, but the idea is like, so you have that, and I'm just gonna say NieR replicant going forward, and hopefully that didn't make things worse because it might have been a non-issue that I made an issue. But my whole thing is this: um, there are a lot of things that are established in NieR replicant that get expanded upon in NieR Automata, right? And it feels very organic. It's woven in to like the narrative very well, like in some like broad stroke sort of way, but then in some like very nuanced sort of way. Because throughout NieR Automata, right, you're finding all these different things about the lore, both again in those broad stroke ways in the main narrative, but you're also finding like different files and different things that piece together parts of the old world. Not only do they give you an idea of things that happen in NieR Replicant, but they also expand and kind of tell you like what happened afterwards, right? Because like um, there's no replicants and no gestalts in in NieR Automata. And you could argue that that's the implication at the end of Replicant, but it's not explicitly stated that that is what happened. And so you get that major plot point, but you break down, and not only do you get an idea of what happened in Replicant without actually playing Replicant, but you also get an idea of the events that led into Replicant. So what took place between that alternate ending of Drakengard and like NieR, and it's just like it's a wild thing, um, just like insane. Because like when you look at all of the story and when it takes place, right? Like well, there's a whole lot of side material too, but like if you look at the games, it's like it's a wild thing because you have that alternate ending of Drakengard, where um, our main characters get transported to the human world, um, and it's a it's a music battle, like a rhythm battle. Anyway, it's in 2003, right? And then, like at the start of Replicant, you start off like 50 years after those events, um, in 2053. But I think it's like if you played the Gestalt version or the international version of NieR Replicant, is like they changed the times of some things, but this is just the Replicant version. At any rate, you jump ahead, and all of a sudden it's around 3400, and then like in NieR Automata, it's later still, and it's like I think the year 11,945, and so that's wild. Like because it's about 8,500 like years after Replicant, and you see what happened to the world through various points, and it's like woven in. If you didn't know about that world previously, that's okay because you got the broad strokes, and you even got the more nuanced handling. You find out about Project Gestalt as you go on, and you find out about what happened with you know the events in that game, but also what led up to it. And like replaying it is like it's a bonkers thing to me because like okay, so I went on a crazy run, right? Like I played NieR Automata after I was replaying that after playing NieR Replicant for the first time. And so not only did I do that, but I got more engrossed in just the overall lore and was able to find more than I was able to find out previously. And because it's like there were short stories and CD dramas and all that stuff, and actually like a concert that takes place after NieR Automata, and that's the crazy thing. But so I got even more into the lore than I already was, and it is a truly bonkers things. There's some things that like would like pop out outside of those outside of like NieR Replicant, things that popped out outside of those and were like in short stories and like CD dramas and all that. Um, things like the like things like Legion and the Hamlin organization, they pop up in like NieR Automata. Like you can find things that like mention them, and like Legion's mentioned like multiple times, um and it's just like it's a wild thing because you find out more and more over time. It's just like NieR Automata brings together so many elements of what came before it, and it does it in a way that's like spread out throughout various playthroughs, and you're rewarded with that like information. And what gets me is like, right? I did not play Replicant first. I played NieR Automata first, and it was fine. Like having the extra context is nice, but like honestly, in terms of the major parts of the story, like that's covered pretty well and pretty thoroughly. Um, it's covered in NieR Automata, so I like that. So, um, and it's just like it's an increase in the scale and the scope, more polished combat. You took like I think like a story that was great and you made it even greater, and that's really cool. So, and I could go on, but my whole thing is like NieR Automata is a wonderful game and a fantastic sequel because you could play it on its own, and if you play what came before it, you can get an extra layer of enjoyment out of it. And if you're looking at all of like the side material that's associated with it, even more so. But again, like if you didn't have any of that, it was still great. It's still very great because like back when I played Nier Automata, I didn't have any of that. I did not even know it was connected to Drakengard originally. Not when I first played it, and then like as I went on, it's like oh okay that's cool. So yeah, it's a wonderful game, fantastic sequel, and if you have not played Nier Automata, you should. And even if you have, you should. And just keep on playing it. At any rate, like I went on an epic run with it recently, and whenever I replay it, it gets better every time for me. So yeah, that's about all I have to say in it about it. I'll see you in the future. Professor Prime out.